It's Friday, which means it's probably time to fly a very small aeroplane around Australia. Last time I came into Parkes and I didn't have the full scenery installed because I was having issues with it. Those issues have since been fixed. I also said last time on Wednesday that I might be going out on Friday. Well, clearly that hasn't happened, and here I am. On YouTube, there is an event called White Night happening in Melbourne right about now. They've got a whole bunch of light displays. I was going to go out with friends tonight, but they've decided that we'll go tomorrow instead because it's on tomorrow as well. Tomorrow is the weekend. Tomorrow means that we're not tired after work. I haven't woken up at 4 in the morning. I can have a bit of a sleep in, do a bit of a Friday night operations in Phoenix, Arizona, and then head on down to the city. Hi there, Aaron Antonopoulos. Vatsim from city to Ballina. Yes, I like Ballina. It's a nice airport, that one. Especially with the Ant Aussie. Anyway, here we have a little hangar with a bunch of crop dusting little whatever these things are. Bravo Mike Foxtrot. There's a Cessna 172, but it's a yellow. That's not our aeroplane. There's a helicopter. Someone the other day suggested that I should fly a helicopter on one of these legs. And I suggested that I probably shouldn't, because then it would crash the plane and end up as a smoking crater. There's our aeroplane all the way over the other side of the field, roughly just in front of where we left it, but it's facing outbound again. We are going to walk past the scenery, which you can see linked below for Parkes. There's a bunch of scenery down there. You will absolutely, without a doubt, require those converted library files to be installed in your OZX library. Otherwise, all of these buildings have no textures, and that looks awful. But we do have textures on these buildings now, and we're going to meander on past them. This here is, of course, the, I guess you'd call it, the apron. I think Rex Airlines fly here in their SF340s. I don't think everyone else does. At least passenger services. Maybe there's a couple of guys flying like Cessna Conquests and 207s and stuff out here, but as far as large airlines that show up at Sydney Airport with an aeroplane that can fit more than 30 people, you end up with your old Rex Saab 340s. There's the entrance into the airport, and we can see Parkes Regional Airport. Continuing along the fence line airside, you can see the car park off to the right hand side there. And looks like a Piper Archer or Cherokee over there. In the Parkes Aviation Proprietary Limited Maintenance Hangars. Nice big gates for the car park. There's a Cessna 172 behind. Red car and a white four-wheel drive of some sort. Couple of bins out there next to the hangar. And the fuel bowsers, which we need to probably look at our fuel and double check that before we jump into Juliet Kilo November JKN. Lachlan Boyd, who was a member of the channel, thank you for your sponsorship. Suggesting that I should fly the 737 from Brisbane to Sydney, stopping past Bathurst and do the fly for Bathurst 1000. Or we could fly this aeroplane over Bathurst 1000, this very aeroplane that we are walking to, Juliet Kilo November, because Bathurst is indeed one of our stops. And actually, I'll be there before. We won't take a month to get to Bathurst, sorry. We'll be there in about 2 weeks, maybe 1 week. Might even be next Friday or Saturday or something. Because on this flight, we're going to be flying from here in Parkes over the dish, do a couple of laps to see the dish while trying to maintain just outside its restricted airspace. And once we are clear of the dish, we will head on out to Nyngan. I was walking up on the Cessna 172 as if I'm approaching a Piper Cherokee and you need to come in through the right door. But you don't need to come in through the right door on a Cessna 172, you can come in over here. He hit his head. He certainly did hit his head while he did that. The joke goes, there are two kinds of pilots that fly Cessna 172s, and they are the following. Pilots that hit their head on the flaps, or pilots that hit their head on the wing strut. It's one or the other. You don't get away with both. Just going to make sure I have landing rate monitor on. I do. And we are sitting inside. So, with us inside the airplane, I'm going to do a couple of checks. We have, yeah, that's good to go. Master switch. Got no sound. Just checking. There we go. Sound on. Yay. Okay, so the master switch is on. With that, I'm going to take the cover off that. Done. Then we'll turn on the pitot heat and drop the flaps. Flaps are down, master switch is off. That's a warm pitot probe. Key is open. Cool. So the tie down is pulled away. Move these up and down. Check that we can move the trim tab. It's working well. Next. Alright, the flaps are good. Attached. There we go. Tested the Shift 3 will bring up this one that I'm moving around, the controls tab. Wheel chocks, empty plane and all that kind of thing. And the other one is Shift 8 to bring up the walk around. Okay, the tie down's away and so is the wheel chock. Looking at the fuel. Need a bit more than that. Not quite full tanks, just about 3/4, something like that. Okay, fueled up again, we need to double check. Still clear, nothing floating around in it, all good. Looking up the top, we can see that we have 20, maybe 22 gallon of fuel. Opening that up, the oil is nice and straw coloured, not black. And we have about 7 quarts. In the bottom here, we have no particles floating around in there, all looking fine. Propeller is straight. Propeller doesn't have any nicks or cracks in it. Up close and personal, we have nothing inside our air intakes. Nothing in the pilot, in the static probe, sorry. Always love going from there to you have to stand on top of the wing. So kind of grab that handle over there, chuck one foot here, chuck one foot on the wing strut and hoist yourself up, balancing one of your hands on the wing. And then you can take your hand off the handle and open up the avgas. Looking at the avgas, we have 22-ish, 21-ish gallon of fuel. There's nothing in the fuel drain. Chocks are away. Tie down is away. The stall warning system is away, and so is the fuel drain. There's nothing in there. All those bits are connected. Flaps are good. And we are back inside. Hi Dan172, how are you? I'm doing pretty well. I'm not going to White Night tonight because all my friends wanted to go tomorrow in the rain. So I'll be stuck doing that tomorrow instead of today. I'll probably be wearing a big massive Dryzabone and a big rain hat. And when I get too cold and miserable, I'll go home. Alright, before we start any engines or anything like that, we will have a look at our flight plans and our charts, get everything ready for today's flights. Getting my pad ready. Cool. So there's air traffic control over in Adelaide. Not that it helps us anyway. Parkes showing up weather is Cav OK. Wind to 340 at 8. And after 0800, which is not quite yet, 10 o'clock. Never mind. It comes even lighter though. Up in Dubbo, they have Cav OK 320, so looking at wind from the north. Runway 29's an option. Or 04. 04's closer. 31, 32, 33, 34. 5, 6, 7, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6 or 5, 60 or 50. We might do runway 29. I think we did 22 the other day, didn't we? So the slightly thinner runway with a proper centre line. So we'll take that runway instead of 04. Longer taxi, but whatever. We'll taxi out via Delta and off to 29. Taxi elevation is 1069, which is obviously not what we're saying there. Something more like that. The altimeter 1023 pretty steady, and that does concur with the height that I'm seeing. Okay, we'll be taken off. Coming out of Parkes, we will track pretty much directly north until we spot the dish. We'll do a lap, something like a figure of 8. Might just do a left-hand lap since we want to be looking out the left window because that's where the video is coming from. There's no one really sitting in the right-hand seat. I might do a figure of 8 anyway. Do the left-hand side orbit first and then do the right-hand side. So I'll come out here, pushing out that way towards Nyngan, make a right-hand turn, track towards Yankee Mike Romeo 525. That's not a waypoint, that's a restricted area. We'll stay outside the restricted area using the GPS as our primary reference. do a full right-hand circuit of the dish, and then tattle into a left hand and do a left-hand circuit of the dish, maybe two, and then we'll head on out. Once we head on out, we'll probably take a direct to from the dish area up to Nyngan, and there is a good reason for that, and that reason is that is an airway, but it's a one-directional airway going the opposite direction. So we shouldn't really be flying the opposite direction up a one-way airway. So what we're doing instead is an offset hanging out from the dish instead of the airport of Parkes, and we need a minimum altitude of 3,500 until we pass the runway essentially, and then 2,100. Given that it's cav-okay up there, we can climb as high as we really want. 6,000 something or other, 6,500 sounds good to me. It is slightly westbound, so an even altitude is better than an odd altitude, not that it matters down that low. Looking at Nyngan, we have runway 05, which is in action at the moment, since the wind is from the north. There's also an option of runway 26, but that is, as you can see down here, it's not in that chart, but you can tell it's grass runway. What we have here is runway 1836 is unrated grass, which I don't really want to fly onto, given that we have a nice, beautiful asphalt runway with lighting available. So we'll do that instead. The elevation is 566 feet up there, and the runway is 1,600 meters long. Part activated lighting that we don't need because it's daytime, and CTAF on 126.7, which is the same as CTAF as Parkes. Assuming that works for us all, I'm going to go ahead and log into vatsim since I didn't do that properly. And with that, we will chuck in our flight plan. We're going from PKS YNYN, Nin, and there's no real alternate. If you really need to, we can always come back. And what was that restricted airspace? It's VFR, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to read it anyway. 6,500 VFR, 110 knots. And Snowy Centre just popped online, so we can monitor a Melbourne Centre if you want to. Cool. With that said, Lachlan Boyd asks, would I rather have an MD-11 or an MD-10 for P3D? I love the idea of both of those, but if I had to choose one, it would be the 11. Sorry. Mostly because the MD-10 flies for one airline and one airline only. There's only MD-11s in FedEx livery, whereas MD-10s only exist in FedEx. Whereas an MD-11 can be flown by FedEx or Lufthansa Cargo or UPS or any of the other subsidiaries that float around. Centurion Cargo has a one, I think. So yeah, 5 or 6 different airlines fly the MD-11, whereas there's only one for the MD-10. Lachlan Boyd asking if I have multiple monitors or just one. I do have multiple monitors. Attached to my main computer is 2, and I have an entirely second computer to read your comments. I can also pop up more comments. And Rossi QA has arrived and saying hi. Well, we've probably spent too much time on the ground here, coming up in 20 minutes. I'm just going to have a look at entering the cabin. It is a cold engine, so we'll use all of those tricks, which you already know. Weight and balance is checked. We have 3/4 tanks and 2 people on board. Parking brake is set while control wheel lock is removed, and I can move everything up. That's working fine. The master switch has been done. We have the flaps extended. Fuel selected set to both. And the fuel shutoff valve is open. Flaps are extended and elevator trim set for takeoff. Okay, engine start. Looking at that stuff. Propeller area is clear. Auxiliary fuel pump on until it gets into the green, then off again. The old trick. And I'll just lean it ever so slightly. Crack open the throttle. Master switch is in. Beacon is on. And the fuel pump. 2, 3. Looking at that fuel flow. And it's in the green. 24.5. Looking around the aircraft, we have no one really hanging out there. Clear prop. That wasn't hard to start at all, it just clicked into place. Cool, so 1000 RPM, I'll turn on the avionics. A weird sticky point in the thing over there. Okay, flight plan coming out of Parkes and going over to Nyngan. Nothing else needed in the flight plan. We are pretty much VFR. We'll be flying with the heading bug. And I need to remove the N. Now, why? YN. Nyngan. Who would have thought we'd end up there? Okay, this transponder can go up to the altitude reporting. Not that anyone's seeing it. And we'll 126.7, it's already set. We're only snowy on 124.0. Now we can monitor Melbourne Centre, but I don't think we need any flight following today. There's a straight line. If we push out, oh, there we go, directly north, you can see a little blue circle. That is the dish. The dish that brought in Neil Armstrong's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. And Rossi QA, no, it wasn't 525, it was Cathay Cargo, something 28. Nice little 747. That said, you might be talking to Dan. It was Dan Jetstar 525, might have been. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and close the window so we can move off to the runway. We're sitting on the kind of eastern edge of the field. We'll do a U-turn and shoot down Delta. Before we do that, flaps are coming up. And before we start moving, I'm just going to look at my flight controls. Just looking at the shadow there. Those are working good. And I'm happy that the flight controls are moving. Going to dial 6,500 into the autopilot, and then we will disconnect the park and brake, make ourselves a nice little turn. Okay, facing the right way, just need to look out. Where we're going up there I think, yes we are. Traffic parked. Juliet Kilo November is a Cessna 172. We are taxiing to runway 29 via Delta. Departure to Nyngan, northbound. July November. 1000 RPM, just going to reduce the, there we go, mixture until we hit 1000 again. Having issues with your 787, are you? That's annoying. I'm going to be doing Brisbane to Hamilton Island, and I've double checked that all my scenery is working fine. Just had to remove a couple of files from OZX version 2. I'm just going to do one more test flight because I have heard rumours that there's some grass showing up in water for some people, but if I can get that under control, we'll be fine to Hamilton Island. Probably in the 717 if it's Hamilton Island. Alternatively, if I do find grass in the water, then I'm going to switch over to Mackay if I can't resolve it. And if I go to Mackay, it might be the 73. Yeah, as you saw with my flight from Melbourne to Perth in the 787, the aeroplane flew pretty well until we had to enter the hold, and I think if we had to exited the hold the correct way, we would have been fine. But of course, I didn't exit the hold the correct way, mostly because I was told that I didn't have to hold anymore halfway through the the outbound leg, and I immediately just went direct to. Not necessarily the right thing to do, but I just want to do it quick because it was, you know, a race. And yeah, then we broke it. We had to fly it on heading mode for the rest of the day. I'm worried that this taxiway isn't entirely solid. It looks a little bit dirt to me. I know the runway is solid, but yeah, this is a bit off. And Hamilton Island showing up just black. I've got no idea, I've never seen that one before. One thing that I often do see is having two runways on top of each other. So you have the correct runway, and you also have the default FX runway. But that fortunately didn't show up for me today. Traffic Parkes, Juliet Kilo November, entering runway 29, departure to the north. Okay, we shouldn't have actually blasted that one out because we have to do a run up. Let's face it into the runway and get the brakes set. Mixture fully rich. Okay, everything is closed up. Double check the doors and the windows. We don't want any of those open while we go to high power. Let's go. Lachlan Boyd, I'm not sure if you know this, but the real Hamilton Island has a cliff at the gates. Just look up some photos of Hamilton Island Airport and make sure that you're not seeing what's meant to be there. Okay, we're sitting at 1800. We're going to drop one of the magnetos. That's dropping it down about maybe 70, 60. Back up. The other magneto. That's working fine. Let it settle, double check everything is in the green, and we'll drop it. Idle's a little low for my liking. 500, it's a bit rough. It'll stay. Back to 1000, lean it out a touch, and get some strobes in. Fuel pump is on, landing lights are on, strobes are on, pitot heat is on, everything is on. technically we don't need the pit heat right now, but it's probably going to be fine. Alright, park and brake is released. Let's go. So yeah, that's my bit of suggestion, is just double check that, go into Google Images search and do Hamilton Island Airport, and just make sure that you're not seeing something that resembles the real airport, because there is actually a cliff just in front of the parking gates in the real world. There we go, runway 29. Marker is in. Off we go. There's 60. $75. $500 from the end. And left-hand turn. Traffic Nyngan, Juliet Kilo November is turning across the end, departure runway 29. Time at 6,500. There's directly north. It's past directly north ever so slightly. I'm happy with that, so the fuel pump goes off. Taxi light is off. I think Melbourne Centre's gone off again. It was online for all of about 8 minutes. You logged on after 7 PM and it's 7:30, it's gone already. Why bother? Even if I was going for flight following, I wouldn't be able to do it now. Oh well. Tail and bends on, 1253. Don't extend this far. What's that? Warren PCL. Who knows? I think I have the dish in sight. I almost definitely have the dish in sight. We can start our left-hand turn just to stay outside of its little circle. See you there, Dan. Good luck with your stupid o'clock. I was up at 4 this morning. But tomorrow, I'm going to get up just in time to do Friday night ops, and not a minute earlier. Hi there, Aaron. Hope you're doing well. We're going to fly around the famous Parkes radio telescope dish. And that's 3,500. And level off. We'll go to 23.5 RPM, 23.50. I'll come back to 23. You don't want to fly too fast around the dish. It's meant to be a treat. Savor the moment. Take it as long as possible. Parkes radio telescope in the flight sim. This feature comes with the airport, so you get the trees as well as the actual dish itself, plus the subsidiary little dishes next to it. In fact, as the story goes, when Neil Armstrong's first stepped foot on the moon and said that was a small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, they were unable to get that dish pointed down low enough to actually capture the moon. So they had one of his subsidiary dishes capturing that image.
Radar, my airspace radar. So this is the now terminated. Monitor Unicom 122 Deslight. Have a good flight. Good night.
Down. One thing I don't like about the Cessna is just how much airframe there is compared to the Parker Cherokee. There's too much stuff. I mean, the one good side is that you can look straight down. I don't know how useful that is, but anyhow, we're not allowed to get that close to the radio telescope. We are actually required to stay outside its little restricted zone, which is only a mile wide. I'll probably stay about a mile and a half out. Anyway, as the story goes, there's the main telescope. It didn't actually have the ability to depress its angle towards the horizon low enough to use the main dish to pick up Neil Armstrong's famous words. So they actually did need to use its secondary pickup dish, which has a better angle of deflection. Because it's smaller, and they can get down to about 90 degrees of pitch. Whereas the main dish right now is roughly at its maximum deflection right now. About 65 degrees or so. So yeah, that's why the images from that particular part of the moon landing are so trashy, as though using that tiny one. As if they had have waited a few more minutes, they would have been able to pick it up with the big one. Now, just after Neil Armstrong actually puts his foot on the surface of the moon, he says some other random sundry stuff and starts describing what the texture of the dirt on the moon is. And while he is doing that, you can see this switch between really fuzzy vision and quite clear vision, and that's the moment that they're able to pick up the transmission with the main dish, and they switched over to the main dish. It's said that one of the main reasons that happened is that NASA actually scheduled in a sleep period on the moon. So the idea was that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were meant to land on the moon, and then they were meant to shut down the engines and all that kind of stuff, secure the lunar module, and then go to sleep. But apparently after they'd just had all the excitement of landing on the moon, they didn't want to go to sleep. And they couldn't go to sleep, they weren't going to sleep, they were just sitting there and waiting essentially with their eyes open going, I want to get out of the moon. Let's get out of the moon. So after spending nearly 2 hours just waiting around, getting batshit stir crazy, they decided to step out. And unfortunately, they stepped out early enough that the big dish was not able to actually capture the main images for a few minutes, just because the deflection to the moon was a little bit too low. And that is the story of the Parkes radio telescope. Of course, it's done many other things apart from that. It's done 50 years of working with the CSIRO, looking at deep space signals, places like Mars or Voyager probes, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the big story, that it was captured in a movie called The Dish, an Australian produced movie, which details that story that I just told you over a period of an hour and a half. And I think there was something to do with some guy that fell in love with some woman. Who knows? But whatever, that's the story of The Dish and Apollo 11. I hope you've enjoyed the story and the sight of the dish. I think we'll continue on to Nyngan, unless anybody wants to go back. Black Sky, Vincent, Aaron, Lachlan. If you're happy with the amount of dish that you have seen, we will now leave the dish behind. Say goodbye to a little piece of Australian history and leave Parkes, heading up towards Nyngan. And to do that, I am going to avoid just making sure that we don't go the wrong way down that airway. We'll also continue climbing up to 6,500. So I'll start with climb first. Actually, I'm seeing clouds sitting at about 6,000-ish feet. Particularly that cloud. So there's nothing beyond it. So I'll just stay here for the moment. 4,500. That works for me. Gee, we don't need to reduce the power that much. We actually want to accelerate. So I'm going to go into cruise thrust, cruise power. Off we go. 120 knots, we'll leave it at about 125, and then we'll establish ourselves at 4,500, just trimming out. And once we have the trim, we're going to turn on that. 4,500, altitude is set. Heading mode is heading mode, not now. Heading mode is selected. I'll just kind of come a little bit further to the north. And then we are going to grab a flight plan, go direct to Nyngan. And with that, we can go to the nav. You can see the white line where the airway is. That's a high altitude and low altitude airway, which tracks opposite the direction we're currently going. You can see Accu-sim over there. Adjusting power so we get 2,400 RPM, not 25. Just keep it off the red line. And we can start reducing the mixture so we can lean out the airplane. Just moving slowly at the moment. We're watching the EGT temperature. That's the one just below the clock and the temperature itself. So at the top there you see 9C, that's 9 degrees Celsius outside the aeroplane, air temperature. 1242, that's a clock. And below that is the fuel flow and EGT gauge. And the more you lean out, the higher that EGT gets, until it peaks out and starts dropping again. And if you're dropping again, that means your leaner peak, so you push it up a little bit to the peak and then a little bit more to go slightly richer peak. That's what the operating handbook says in the Cessna 172. I do realise that Cirrus SR22 say the opposite of that. That's a whole debate, and that we will manage. But all just operated as per the handbook for the 172, which is ever so slightly richer peak. We have found it, and we're on the way now to Nyngan. And with that all under control, have a chat about what we have just done. So I've left Parkes, small town in kind of the western plains of New South Wales. As you can see, it's not desert out here. It's essentially large tracts of farming land, a lot of sheep, a lot of cows, a lot of grass, a little bit of growing of fruit and stuff, but not much. Yeah, nice pleasant countryside really. You see a Simon Rowe deep space radio telescope which we flew around. And yeah, we continue on. Tullamore is off to our left, and Tullamore does in fact have a very small licensed landing area, ALA you might want to call it. Not sure enough from the GPS. But it does show up in this. Tottenham, that's right. So we quite close enough to it yet. Still 89, 90 miles to go to Nyngan. It's not too much up in this part of the world, to be honest. Apart from the dish. Here's the Bogan River. Yes, that is correct. The Bogan River. B-O-G-A-N. And I'm pretty sure that's where the term Bogan got its reference from. Bogan. So the term Bogan in Australia means essentially redneck in American. It means a very uneducated, uncouth person who's lived in rural and remote areas of the country. Probably not very well educated, relatively poor socioeconomically, doesn't really have a job, tends to drink far too much alcohol, possibly other substances, including turpentine, petrol, that kind of stuff. Tends to wear flannel a lot and doesn't have a very large vocabulary. There's a certain way of speaking when you're a Bogan. But that, of course, is very derogative to call them that, which is what we do. Here's a hilarious thing. Up in the town of Nyngan, which is the airport that we're flying to, there is a sculpture. Now, as you know, a lot of towns have a tourist attraction. You get the big banana, the big pineapple. Yeah, I don't know what else. Big bananas up in Queensland somewhere. I've seen a pineapple up there as well. I think Coffs Harbour has one. I think Coffs Harbour has a big banana. Anyhow, Nyngan also has a big thing that's a tourist attraction. It's not really a big tourist attraction, it's just, you know, a silly sculpture of something. And that silly sculpture is the Big Bogan. The township of Nyngan literally has this thing here inside the town, and it is considered to be called the Big Bogan. They are embracing the entire description. The singlet, the shorts, the thongs, the fishing rod, the dude with the mullet and the goatee, the hat. Got a bit of damage to his leg down here. He's got a Southern Cross tattoo. Yep, he's the real deal. He is the Big Bogan. And that is in Nyngan, New South Wales. Now, I don't know why we ended up with the Big Bogan. Well, I do know why we ended up with the Big Bogan is because, obviously, we derogatively call our rednecks Bogans, but also Bogan River. It's right there in the GPS, B-O-G-A-N River. So the one thing I don't understand is why we have a river called the Bogan River. Maybe that's the slang term for an uncouth regional person from Australia, being a Bogan, might actually come from Bogan River. Maybe people from Nyngan were especially Bogan. So yeah. Fine, let's look at our estimate just after half past. So we've got about 45 minutes till we're on the ground in Bogan town, Nyngan. There's nothing above us. It's all cav-ok up there. So I'm quite happy to climb now. I'm going to do that on the autopilot. 6,000 feet. Disconnect out. Give it some. There we go, about 500, maybe 600 feet a minute. 700, and then you arm. Make sure altitude is armed. We have vertical speed going in. You can see the aircraft is climbing. We can see that we are reducing speed because of the climb, and with that we can increase the amount of power we have just to keep that RPM up to 2400. And we're going to aim for around about 80, 90 knots on the climb. And bogans live everywhere in Australia. Bogans are all over the place. We have bogans here in Victoria as well. Mostly the teenage and mid-30s sons of farmers. Themselves not necessarily farmers. Usually they're dull-blooders. In fact, you can have entire families worth of bogans. Generally not married to each other. Generally not working. Generally just hanging out outside the pub. At 10 AM on a Tuesday morning. With their pension check just about to blow it all on a can of Timbies. There we go, 1,000 pizza run. Yeah, that's Parkes, we don't need that chart anymore. As you can see, there's nothing out here. Narrowmine's way off there. We are coming back towards Narrowmine at the end of Sunday. On Sunday we're going to fly essentially back the way we've come to Narrowmine. We'll probably do a couple of touch and goes at Narrowmine. Might even do a couple of glide approaches, flightless approaches, that kind of stuff. And then we'll make the very short 18 nautical mile trip to Dubbo and put the airplane to bed in Dubbo for the night, for the week. I assume that they do it to the footy. Hi there, Site Inspector. How is Christchurch at this time of the day, where it is, what, 10 PM in Christchurch? Sounds fine. So tomorrow night I will be heading out. It'll be very cold, very wet, looking at some very pretty lights in Melbourne at this time, hanging out with some friends. I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to it, but we'll see how this experiment goes. There's a event called White Night. It's a silly name in my opinion, but whatever. We can't call it Vivid. So there you go. Oh, we've passed through the altitude that I wanted. Come on, Cessna. It's a 260 foot altitude fast on the autopilot. What the heck? Go back down. Yeah, vertical speed, we'll reduce that and we'll arm it. Just to make it easy on the autopilot, we might as well. There we go. Let's figure it out. Being interrupted by the autopilot, just not behaving itself today. So after the very in-depth story of Parkes radio telescope, which is steeped in lore about Apollo 11, and those famous words of Neil Armstrong, let's have a look at Nyngan. Wikipedia. I don't know anything about Nyngan, never been there in my life, never really thought about it much, apart from the fact that it has OZX airport there, which looks pretty good. Soil Inspector with some breaking news. Qantas 747-400 has to divert to Christchurch today, as its flight from City to Santiago declares an emergency. How about that? live from Christchurch. Christchurch plane spotters enjoyed the sight of the Qantas 747. It's not a sight you'll get to see in a year from now, because the end of 2020, those 747s are gone. So Nyngan is a town in the centre of New South Wales in the Bogan Shire Council. Yeehaw. Nyngan has a population of just over 2,000 people. And it's on the sea on the Bogan River between Narromine and Burke, which you might know as the back of Burke. Nyngan Airport is a small airport just north of the town centre, which we are going to. And there's a train. Yes, the 747s are indeed very rare sight. To be honest, they're a rare sight in Melbourne now too. Never mind Christchurch. You hardly see a 74 in Melbourne. There was once upon a time when, even as far as I can remember, which means from 2006, back in 2006 we used to get the Thai Airlines MD-11 and so many China Airlines 747s, it was ridiculous. Nowadays it's just all 777s and A330s. Thanks for that, Hoppy. Yeah. Glad you're around to watch Parkes commentary. It's a great story, that one. It's also a really good radio telescope this year in the scenery and the flight set. I was quite glad that has been included in the scenery. There's Dubbo over there. We'll be coming back to Dubbo on Sunday. And that suffice to say, I went to school and then also university with a friend who played trombone, and he doesn't live in Dubbo anymore, but for about 10 years he did. He was conducting concert bands in the region, not just in Dubbo, and he actually created, or almost created, he combined several bands into this massive competing concert band that won a B grade, won the B grade nationals in Sydney. So that was quite fun to see that happen. 10 years in the making. Curated that band essentially himself out of the dregs of amateurness and brought them to victory. I'll chat more about him maybe we get further in. Singapore Airlines flying their freighter. Yeah. They send out their freighter down to Melbourne as well. That's probably the most common 747 that we have. The Singapore Airlines freighter. The Atlas Air comes in about once or twice a week. And the Cathay Pacific once every 2 days. Cathay Pacific comes from Sydney down to Melbourne, sits in Melbourne, then it either goes direct to Hong Kong, but once every week or 2 weeks it goes via that new airport, Lifecam, up near Brisbane, up near Toowoomba. We say Brisbane, it's in Toowoomba. It's a bit like building an airport in Newcastle and calling it Sydney. There's that Bogan River again. We're going to cross the Bogan River. It's just off to our right side somewhere. Can't see it. It's a tiny river. It might be this like random patches of blue. It's more like a series of lakes than it is a river. 34, we're losing some time. And we'll see our... we increased our altitude, so I'm going to have to reduce the mixture again. So to do that, we just pull back on the red lever a little bit, but not too much, because if you pull it all the way out, then the engine stops. But if you push it all the way in, the engine kind of gets flooded with fuel and doesn't. There we go. I've just heard the pitch change, so I'm just going to increase the RPM slightly again, and we have a leaned out EGT gauge. Beautiful. Done again. So essentially you just pull that big red lever out until the engine starts to reduce its RPM a little bit. You'll hear it. I do it by ear a little bit as well. You just hear it drop a little bit. Then you push it back until it's at the peak while you look at the EGT gauge, and it'll start to drop out of the peak. So once it's ever so slightly dropping while you're pushing in, then you've got it made. So there's a Nyngan flood in 1990, a bunch of heritage listings on random places. There's a solar power plant. 1.36 million solar panels. Okay, I'm not sure if you'll get to see that. I'd imagine 1.36 million solar panels would be very bright. It might even be a hazard to navigation of aeroplanes. No pictures of the thing. That's a pity. That's a thing that I didn't know before I read that. Oh, there you go. Massive solar energy plant at Nyngan. There you go. Out there with the Bogans. There's the Bogan River. Sure. Coming up on 60 miles out. Pick up Melbourne Centre and Brisbane ACC again.
Rio, can't get you lower just yet. Give me about 10 miles and I can get you down and knocked out. I said no problem, but I'm through it. Approximately 9516, descent 7000.
Bunch of guys coming out of
7000, 9516.
They're not even there. They're just having to be flying over the top of each other. Oh no, that is an airport. Which one is that? Cannot tell. It's probably Narromine. Not Narromine, but... Yeah, it is Narromine. Okay, cool. There's a bunch of dudes there hanging out near Narromine. Ah, that's not Narromine, that's directly north of Bathurst. Come on. Gotta do this one here. Where is that? That would be in Coonamble. Alright, that's not a place that we're going on the tour today. At any point. There's no add-ons anywhere as far as I know to Coonamble. Maybe there is. Really researched it, but today we're off to Nyngan.
Cleared, Arnold approach runway 35.
Sunday we'll go to Narromine and Dubbo. And then next week we'll head on down to Bathurst. About a month too early for the Bathurst 1000 race, but we'll pass through. We'll probably fly over that racing track.
So 1023, expect to pop.
Yeah, they're doing centre stuff up there. It's pretty relevant for us Cessna people flying outside controlled airspace at 6,500 feet. Controlled airspace starts at 18,000 feet, so you can pretty much do whatever you want down here. I remember the massive flood in the 90s. Probably too young to care. Could have been in either late primary school or early high school. Pretty flat out here. Get used to it. It'll be pretty flat until we hit the Great Dividing Range back after Bathurst. You can see the mountains there. Even that said, the mountains down this side aren't particularly difficult, and even when we come up here again, they're not massive. Might go over Mount Barrington, which is about 5,500 feet high. That's the highest thing that we'll go past. And then there's the Blue Mountains down here. There's a couple of 6,000 peaks. What are they here? 5,500. Yeah, they're not too bad. Yeah, 5,500. So technically these mountains are even smaller than Barrington Tops. Barrington Tops is sitting at about, yeah, there it is, 6,005 is the minimum altitude there. So the mountain itself is about 5,200 feet, Mount Barrington. That's up near Dungog. And yeah. So I've just done a little bit of adjustment of the route near Sydney. As you can see there, we do double back on ourselves a little bit. That's just so we get a couple of passes of Sydney itself. The idea is, let's see, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So next week we should end up in Bathurst. And on Sunday next week, so in about 9 days from now, we'll be taking Juliet Kilo November back home to Richmond. We'll be swapping aeroplanes over to Hotel Tango Mike and flying all these city flights with HDM. Then we'll fly the Piper Cherokee Hotel Tango Mike up to Cessna, back down into Bankstown, probably on one event. And then the next day we'll go Camden and Wollongong in one event, and quite possibly all the way up the Victor one through Sydney and up to Warnervale. We might even do that on a milk run Monday, just to be interesting. I've been to Dungog. I've been over Dungog at 1,500 feet. Dungog is a very, very interesting little piece of airspace because it's so close to Whittingtown Air Force Base. The aeroplane, the FA-18 Hornets do flight, like combat fighter training just near Dungog. So aeroplanes like this need to stay at 1,500 feet up to Dungog, and then they climb up to 2,500 feet at Stroud Road, and then up to Gloucester. And just off your left-hand side, or yeah, the left-hand side if you're going northbound, is this massive 5,000 foot tall hill. So you're sitting here at 2,500 feet looking at a 5,000 foot tall hill off to your right. And it's a little bit intimidating in a little aeroplane like this. So that'll be some interesting airspace in a couple of weeks. And kind of looking forward to it. I have flown it with Arjun in real world with Hotel Tango Mike. And it was that night, that time we did a night flight. So we departed kind of late morning, midday-ish, out of Richmond Air Force Base. We went up to, no, we did the entire flight firstly. So yeah, we departed about midday, went straight up to what we call the Worm, up past Dungog and Stroud Road in Gloucester, and then we went back down the coastline around Forster and Anna Bay, and then past Whittingtown inside the control zone, almost directly over their runway, and into Maitland, where we stayed for, I don't know how long that was, stayed for a couple of hours at Maitland before we headed back down to Richmond in the dark. You can see that in my channel page if you look on Real World Flights, if you're interested. But yeah, that's the plan. So today we're heading up to Nyngan. On Sunday we head down to Narromine and Dubbo. Next, probably Friday, maybe Wednesday if I feel like it, down to Bathurst. to position the aeroplane into Richmond. We'll fly probably into Richmond on the Sunday. And I'm really tempted to fly at least to maybe both of them on a Monday. So Sunday there, maybe the Wednesday up to Cessna. No, not the Wednesday up to Cessna. Maybe the Monday. So maybe out of Monday we will depart Richmond, see if someone can take Richmond Tower. We'll fly up to Cessna, do a quick kind of stop at Cessna to say hi, and then within the same hour come back to Bankstown, and then we'll leave it. We'll leave it for an entire week, Monday through to Monday, and then the next Monday we're coming out of Bankstown, hit Camden and Wollongong, fly the Victor one straight up through Sydney, do a couple of circuits of the Sydney Harbour, just over the Opera House, and then track on northbound to Warnervale. And then we don't need any more air traffic control airspace anymore, so the next flight after that will be up to Maitland on Friday. I think that'll work. Yes, there's the only thing in Dungog that I'm really familiar with is that there's a train. There's a train line that goes up past Dungog, and there's an airway of very special use general aviation airspace that goes straight up there. Apart from those two factors, Dungog is a mystery to me. Apart from Barrington Tops, a 5,000 foot tall mountain off in the distance. I would say I'd like to go to Dungog one day, but let's be honest, I don't. Maybe if I catch that train up to out of Newcastle and Maitland, north of Maitland. Man, I can't imagine catching a train up there for any reason. Maybe if you're going to Foster or something. I guess you could go through Dungog if you were driving to Port Macquarie. I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it. Normally you come down the Princess Highway instead of going inland, but that's an option. No, I don't think there is a Sim 747 SP, at least not a good one that I've seen. Certainly the Iron Maiden 747-400, I've seen the repaint, I don't really care, but whatever, it's cool. And we don't have the old Air Force One Boeing 747-200 with the modifications to make it a C-47 or whatever they call the thing. 38, can't remember the designation. But the new Air Force One that is being developed, I guess you'd say, for deployment sometime in 2022, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to be based on a 747-8. And yeah, that looks like it might actually, work okay. It is a very strange name, Dungog. And the funny thing is, here's a joke. When I was looking at the VTC for Dungog, and I'm sure I'll mention this in a couple of weeks when we fly over the place, I was looking at it and I saw the word Dungog and I said the word, pronounced it as dugong, which is of course that sea creature that looks like a really fat seal. And yeah, when you say that over a frequency in air traffic control, that becomes a joke. And now Arjun has that joke in his brain. Anytime that we fly over Dungog with Arjun, what I'm going to do is, in my thumbnail, I'm just going to put a picture of a dugong in the thumbnail. It's like, we are flying to Dungog, and then you just put the dugong in there. So if you don't know what a dugong looks like, I'll just bring up a picture of one. Come on. Yeah, it's essentially a really odd-looking, blubbery sea creature that looks like a seal. That's kind of a bit, off. there we are. So yeah, when you go to Dungog, don't call it Dugong. Because you won't live it down. What are we saying? Williamtown Radar, Cessna, Juliet Killer, November, overhead, Dugong? No, it's not Dugong, it's Dungog, mate. Alright, we're already, how far away? 3, 15, 16, 17 minutes away. So here's a funny little thing that we can do. If we wanted to send out, say, 500 feet per minute, which is a nice descent rate in an aeroplane this size because it's not pressurized, and the faster you descend, the harder it is on your ears, because your ears need to equalize that pressure. In an airliner, it's quite okay because it's a pressurized aircraft and the actual pressure inside the aircraft descends at about 500 a minute. But if you were to rip the power out of the Cessna and just dive bomb the ground, you could get 2,000 feet per minute out of this aeroplane, and it would hurt your ears. So, to avoid doing that, we're going to be descending at 500 feet per minute, and we need to get down to 500 feet, which means we need to lose 6,000 feet, but we only need to lose 5,000 feet to get into the circuit. So to lose 5,000 feet at 500 feet a minute, that's easy maths. That's, instead of 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes, because you're doing half of 1,000 feet a minute. So we need to send 10 minutes out from the airfield. We are currently looking at a projection of 33. We need to descend at time 23. The current time is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We need to descend in 6 minutes. And that is how to do descent planning in a Cessna 172. Current time 17, and we're looking for a time of 23. Now we're ignoring the first 2 digits in the hour because we've obviously changed the time, because it's not really daytime in Australia right now, it's night time. It's about 8:15 in the afternoon, evening, night time. But obviously it's nicer to fly around in the daytime because you can see things. So we are looking at a time of 1317, so 1:17 p.m. in the simulator, and we will be arriving at the airfield at time 33. Let's go 33, 17, 13, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 6 minutes out. Let's go to the top of this out. 26 minutes, 16 minutes out from arrival. 40,000 feet is asking when we are doing the Brisbane to Mackay flight. That'll be on Monday, not on Monday. And at this stage I'm a little bit undecided whether I'm flying to Mackay or to Hamilton Island. I have a preference to fly to Hamilton Island. And I'm also a little undecided whether I'm flying the 737 or the 717. I have a slight preference for the 717 if we go to Hamilton Island. But there are no flights to Mackay with the 717 on the schedule, so we fly the 737 if we go there. So they're the options. Option 1 will be Boeing 717 Brisbane to Hamilton Island. Option 2 will be Boeing 737 to Mackay, and we probably won't have an option 3 of Boeing 737 to Hamilton Island. But there are the 3 options. I say that because the 717 is far more rare than the 737. So any time that I look up a route that we have to do from Milk on Monday and there happens to be a 717 on there, I'm going to take that. Because I can fly a 737 from Sydney to Melbourne any week. 3 weeks out of 4. So 3 weeks of the month, Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to Melbourne, 737, 747, Airbus A320, whatever you want to fly. Everything flies that. But when you get the 717 option, it's probably good to stick to that. That's what I'll be doing. 36 miles out, 33, 33, 19. Yeah, it's 26, so we've got 6. Yeah, that's all right. 23, so we've got 3 minutes out. Oh, the center's still there, we don't need to talk to him still. Not listen on. Nah, I'm bored. It's fine. Yeah. Any further questions? We've got about 2 minutes and we're going to start to get busy. Difficulty with Nyngan Airport is it's too small to actually have a what they call a AWIS, Automated Weather Information Service. So there's no weather in Nyngan. You just gotta essentially take the weather from Parkes, take the weather from maybe Dubbo, clash them together and see what pops out the other end. What I'm seeing is altimeter setting that is steady. Both Parkes and Dubbo have 1023 and 1023 now and in an hour and in 2 hours and in 3 hours. So the conclusion is altimeter setting is 1023. 1020, 1, 2, 3, which is set. Time is ready to descend. Looking to go down to 2,500. Drop the alt. We're doing 500 a minute. 500 is set. Starting with set. Going to reduce the amount of power that we have. Increase the mixture as well, because we're at settings, so I'll need more fuel in the mixture. Let the speed climb a little bit, probably up to about 120 knots, and then we'll maintain that speed. We don't want to go into the yellow. I mean, technically we can, and the reason that we can is it's a very still air. So if you're in the yellow, you're above the maneuvering speed, which means the wings can get damaged from forces if you apply up and down motions. Which means if you're inside the yellow, don't pull up hard, and if you're inside yellow, don't be inside turbulence at the same time, because turbulence will make the plane bounce up and down. So I'm happy to let the aeroplane accelerate up to 120. Doesn't really want it, to be honest. It's quite happy at 115. That's knots, of course, almost double for kilometers per hour. The reason that we have nautical miles is because they happen to correspond with degrees of latitude. 60 degrees in latitude, and there's 60 seconds in a degree, 60 minutes in a degree, 60 seconds in a minute. That's minutes of latitude. And it just so happens that a second of latitude equals a knot, nautical mile. Not that you do that kind of mass in a plane. Maybe some flight planners will do that. These days flight planners are using their massive flight planning software tools that are using that kind of maths, but it's programmed into the computer, so it isn't a human doing that math. It's a good thing because, you know, working with the 60 times tables is a little annoying. Oh, Australian Skywatch, how are we doing? Yeah, the altitude, as we're coming down, there's more air. So you want to keep the fuel to air mixture the same. And because there's more air, you're going to need more fuel to even it out. Otherwise the aeroplane, the engine just starts running too air heavy or without enough fuel, too lean. So you just, during a descent, we often enrich it a little bit early, so you kind of settle into your richer mixture. But if you have too lean a mixture, then you start getting issues with like backfires and tree detonations and overheating cylinder heads and stuff like that. Whereas of course, if you have a too rich mixture, then you're essentially flooding the engine. Neither of those are really good, but being too lean of peak means that you're actually in danger of damaging the engine, whereas being too rich of peak probably means that you're going to flood the engine and then it will stop, which is normally fine if it was a car, because then you just like clear out the excess fuel and then start it again, but when your propeller stops in the air, it's scary. Coming up on 10 miles, we'll need to make broadcast. We are on the correct frequency, Nyngan Multicom. And we'll do it now. Traffic, Nyngan, Juliet Kilo November is a Cessna 172. We are descending through 4,500 feet. And we'll be positioning for a approach runway 05. We'll be entering from the dead side onto a crosswind into the downwind leg, runway 05, left-hand side circuit. And we do anticipate arriving into the circuit at time 33. Juliet Kilo November. Now, if there was another aeroplane on that frequency that happened to be at Nyngan at this time of day, night, or whatever we are, they would probably respond to us and say their call sign, whatever it happens to be, where they are. For instance, we're doing circuits, runway 05, currently on downwind. But, as you can imagine, Nyngan Airport isn't exactly the most exciting place in the world. And on this Friday night, there are exactly 0 other aeroplanes at Nyngan, just us. You can tell that because no one replied to us. Eight miles out, it is time to lose the autopilot. Not that we had to, we could fly all straight over the airport if we wanted to on autopilot, but I'd rather not. What I am going to do instead is I'm going to drift ever so slightly to the east of the field, and then we'll come around onto the downward bank. So I need to pass the runway. We need to be on the other side of the runway compared to where we are. I need to be west of the runway. And then we make our left-hand turn circuits into runway 05 and land. A little bit of preparation. Runway 05. Just going to put the bug on 050 just so I know which direction the runway is actually pointed. As you can see, we're kind of almost crossing the runway on a 45 degree. It's just about perfect for a circuit entry from the dead side to 45. Dead side 45, 500 above. Dead side 45, 45 above. When I say dead side, it means that there are two sides of the circuit. There's the live side of the circuit where all the aeroplanes are doing the downwind. And then there's the dead side of the circuit where the aeroplane should be not doing a circuit. So you start on the dead side, which means you can descend into the circuit altitude. And then you enter the circuit at circuit altitude. So all the aeroplanes that are in the circuit are at the same level as you are, and you can see them straight ahead and not like directly below you. That kind of thing. Because as you can imagine, if there's an aeroplane directly below the aeroplane right here, I can't see them because the floor's not see-through. I can't see through the engine. So, given that we can't see through the solid parts of our aeroplane, we want to make sure that the aeroplanes that are out there happen to be right about where the window level is. So that if everyone's at the same altitude in the circuit pattern, then we'll be fine. To get there, of course, we need to be on the dead side of the circuit, so not descending into the circuit pattern, and we need to make that broadcast to let everybody know that we're here, where we are, what we're doing, and give them the option to reply to us if they haven't read it. And there's no air traffic controllers out at Nyngan, as you can imagine. This airport probably sees about 8 flights a week, so there's no point in employing a person to sit in an air traffic controller with a radio and wait days and days for one person to pipe up. So that's why we have this common traffic terminal advisory frequency where the pilots talk to each other instead of having some other authority from above in the tower telling us what to do. Runway is in sight. Okay, we want to be at 2,200 feet, which is 300 feet below where we are. We want to be at that altitude before we hit the cross of the runway. It's going to come in a little bit tighter, having a look around, make sure there's no like gliders with no radio, because that's a possibility, especially in places like this. People out here haven't spoken to an air traffic controller in their entire lives. They might be flying a glider, or they might be flying some kind of weird contraption with, you know, a big fan strapped to the back of some fabric. Yeah, being an air traffic controller in the middle of nowhere would be a good job, but it would also be really, really, really boring. Traffic Nyngan, July Kilo November is 2,100 feet, entering a downwind runway as 05. Just wait until it's 45 degrees behind us. When the airfield appears at 45 degrees behind us, we will start our turn into downwind. I'm happy with that kind of distance. Single circuit, we'll land it and shut it down. No need to do circuits or touch and goes or anything like that. Here's a little cheat. Remember when I put that heading bug at 050? We know that's the direction that the runway points, and now we are facing directly down the opposite side of the runway. So flying down the runway, this is called the downwind leg. And downwind leg, we just maintain altitude and speed of 1,000 feet above the runway. We're about 1.5 miles to 2 miles beside the runway. Gives you a good chance to have a look at the runway, see if there's anything on it. Cars, kangaroos, horses, cows, massive flocks of birds, water flooding, anything like that. That's the reason that you do the downwind. You don't want to do a straight into an approach that's not controlled, because there might not be anybody here for days at a time. And who knows, maybe the fence broke down and a bunch of sheep went on the runway. In which case you don't want to land on the sheep. It's not cool. Or the kangaroos. Whatever else happens to be out here. Once again, we're looking for 45-degree entry. Once the airfield isn't far enough behind us, we can start our turn into what's called the base leg, which is about now. During the base leg, I'm going to reduce the power down to 1500 RPM, so we also lose some speed. And during the turn, we want to maintain our altitude. Don't descend. Traffic Juliet Kilo November is turning base runway 05, traffic Nyngan. Here at 80 knots. See where that runway is at the 05. It's right off our left-hand wing. And I'm going to add some flaps so we can descend without accelerating. Acted like a little bit of a speed brake. I'm feeling a little bit high compared to where I really want to be ideally. So I'm going to drop all the flap now so that we have a lot of drag. That's 65 knots. Got to increase the power ever so slightly, and then we'll turn onto the runway. Approach speed in the Cessna 172 is 65 knots if you have the full flaps. If you don't have the full flaps, it's 70 knots. And the airplane will descend quite well at idle power, and 70 knots with the full flaps. They are actually quite high, so I'm actually doing essentially a glide approach. And we'll land just past the taxiway there. Now there is a crossing runway. It's made out of grass. As we saw before, it's heading runway 360 directly north. But it's always nice to land on concrete. Traffic Nyngan, Juliet Kilo November is final runway 05. Okay, we're in the glide slope now. Just a bit of power to keep that 65 knots over the fence. And then drop the power again. Looking to stay inside that green zone while we land. Didn't quite put it down as well as I wanted to. We mentioned this in Tumut. The Cessna 172 does lead you to land flat because there's no ground effect from the wings. So, still need to work on my technique for the Cessnas. Flaps coming up. Traffic Nyngan, Juliet Kilo November is backtracking runway 05. Yeah, I know the thing says that it was a nice landing at 200 feet per minute, but it was a bit flat. So our front wheel hit the ground just about the same time as the back wheels. Kind of a 3-point landing. Sounds good, but it's actually it's not great. Let's put it that way. It's better to put the back two wheels on the deck before the front wheels go on. But once we get back into the Piper Archer Cherokee, once we hit Richmond, then we'll be back in a nice plane to fly. The autopilot's trash in that airplane, but hand flying it is really nice. This one's just really kind of squirrely, which is correct for a Cessna. They are a little bit off at times. Traffic Nyngan, Juliet Kilo November, vacated runway 05. Yes, I am going to do a flight tomorrow. I think we're going to do the Friday night ops, which is Phoenix, Arizona. Still need to install the scenery for that. Not sure what I'll fly. Maybe the bus, maybe the 7.3, maybe the Mad Dog, don't know. No, it's a long runway. The Cessna's stopped pretty quick, even without too much brakes. The worst thing you need to use brakes for in a Cessna 172 is to steer the thing with. It does have a nose wheel steering, which is attached to your feet, rudder pedals, but it's really sloppy on the 172 compared to the Piper Cherokee. 172, you don't get much bite with your steering at all. So you kind of like do a bit of displacement braking, so you brake the left wheel only and then it'll do that. Brake the right wheel only and it'll kind of meander off. Of course, if you're using the brakes, then it will slow down, so you need to add power to get get it moving through that turn. This will probably be another example of such a thing. There we go, that's working well. Following the yellow line until we are sitting outside that hangar. We might even park it on the grass. That's a grass taxiway over there. That's a nice looking plane. Another of those crop duster things. Want to park next to him or over there somewhere? Don't know. We need to do a U-turn and stick our tail between those two cones. Or straight ahead. That's fine. Straight ahead's fine. Just walk across the tarmac room. There we go. On the grass. Cessnas park on the grass all the time. It's fine. No worries there. Brakes are in. Let's look for 1000 RPM. Quite happy with that. So we don't disturb our electronics, I'm just going to turn them all off. GPS included. And we'll drop the power. Essentially just go fully lean on the engine, let the engine just kind of run out of fuel. And there it is. Now that it's stopped, we'll turn the ignition off, turn the batteries off, and we are here in Nyngan. Seatbelts off. Good stuff. Juliet, Kilo, November. In this tiny little itty bitty town of Nyngan. That's a quaint little airport building. There's no terminal here at all. There's this little house with a fire burning in there. Nice little fireplace. Looks like a boat hire place just behind the hangar there. Let's just tie down the aeroplane. Just going to jump out. Oh, just be a second while I do that. Need to reset all of my controls into the neutral positions and try that again. Cool. So once again, this dude is good 2 to 3 inches shorter than I am. I can't walk under the wing of a Cessna 172 without banging my head on it. What we're going to do is chuck in the tie downs. I was doing the circling thing again. Cool. Wheel lock is in. And the control lock sorted. With that, we'll go ahead and empty the plane and close the doors. both doors. Immediately starts walking it sideways. Can't even get him to stop. There we go. Ish. Cool. Well, Julie Kilo November is sitting on the ground in Nyngan, and we are going to head off and look at the Big Bogan. I do hope you have enjoyed flying with Musical Aviator today on my long, probably going to take 12 months long series of flying around Australia in tiny aeroplanes. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Leave some comments below if you have any further questions. That said, I'll probably see you guys in the weekend. Catch you next time.